Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to the alpha for Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. As today we wrap up our business in Footfall again, and return to the highways and byways of intergalactic space. But first, we have to catch up with an old acquaintance, Gordei Skadov. Let him know we're cashing out. Glad to see you again. Gordei, there truly was a cache hidden in the old bridge. Sadly, it had been plundered already. It was to be expected. The puzzle is several centuries old, and locals are quite adept at gutting, dismantling, and breaking anything that catches their eye. But the very fact that the cache ever existed gives me hope. It means that there could be others. Well, there certainly were. I found a hidden nook inside the lantern. It had clues to the whereabouts of yet more caches. That is incredible news. This is the first inspiring thing that has happened to me since the day I came to Footfall. Please, do not stop searching. I am dying to know what this puzzle from the days of the station's youth is about. Well, I have good news then. I found the final cache in the chain. It had a message from Parsimus Dwayne. Turns out it was the creator of Footfall himself who devised this series of riddles. A message from Dwayne himself. His eyes light up. The great dreamer and visionary. I should have guessed. Dwayne was passionate about his designs. It's no wonder he personally oversaw the creation of the booklet that described it and even included a puzzle for the keen-minded. It's as if he spoke to me through the ages back then, just to lead me here. I feel I've been granted an honor. He takes a deep breath. I'm sorry, I should be thanking you first and foremost for listening to me, and then solving the puzzle, and then finding the time to tell me. Now I finally feel like it hasn't all been for nothing. Well, it certainly wasn't for nothing, my friend. You have impressed me. Now that the puzzle's been solved, what do you say to becoming my residential expert in all matters architectural? You could see dozens of worlds traveling aboard my ship. Such good fortune is beyond even my wildest dreams, exclaims Gordei, practically bouncing in his seat. I would be delighted to serve you in the interest of your dynasty. I believe I could offer you sound advice if you decide to build a cathedral or something even more impressive. And I'll see to it that the imperial architecture of the Cronus Expanse that I'll be fortunate enough to witness is well documented. I'll head up to your ship at once. Thank you. Fantastic. So we got some nice gear plus a free architect. Though I have no real idea what he's for. I imagine that's for Act 3 and onward, since Act 2 is more about regaining control of your planets as opposed to actually building things on them. I imagine there will be a point where you have to build some sort of central headquarters, a fortress or stronghold of some sort. Seems pretty standard for this sort of CRPG. At which point I imagine Gordei will come in handy. Though it is a bit disconcerting that his entire quest could have been derailed by a single failed skill check. That is one thing I'm a little leery about in the alpha thus far, is how many of these resolutions are entirely contingent on like a single, very random skill check. I mean, obviously, RNG is always going to play into games like these, but there are systems like GURPS, for example, which do skill checks on a curve. That tends to weight it so that more important things or easier tasks you're far less likely to flub. Or with games like Pathfinder or D&D, they lock you out temporarily when you fail a check, and you can still go back and try it again later, after you pass a certain milestone or threshold. That way you may temporarily miss out on content if you make a bad roll, but you can usually go back and reacquire it later, unless there were immediate, permanent consequences of failing that check in the first place. Alright, not seeing Gordei here, which makes sense. Like I said, I imagine he's for later in the game. So we'll just push on. Still debating on Cradle of Khepri. I would like to investigate it, but that is a dangerous route. And we're not exactly swimming in navigation points. Also, something's happening. Abelard? The everyday sounds of the bridge are disrupted by voices raised in anger. Abelard's voice the loudest of all. This is not the conduct of an officer. These are the antics of a highborn brat out on a lark. Explain yourself, Lieutenant! The young woman standing before Abelard strives with all her might not to quail under the onslaught of her superior's anger. She falters, but then manages to look him in the eye and say, I apologize, sir, but I must speak to the Lord Captain. Very well, Lieutenant. You may address the Lord Captain, not least because I see you have already seen fit to disturb him. Your unauthorized appearance on the bridge and display of belligerence toward a higher-ranking officer will be logged on your personal file without delay. Lord Captain, Lieutenant Avrilla Vent, requesting permission to speak. Vent falls silent and then adds rashly, on a matter of extreme importance and urgency. Very well, you may speak, but I want to hear a report, not a shouting match. Having two officers bickering in full view of the bridge is unacceptable. I am sorry, Lord Captain. I thought that drastic times called for drastic measures, Vent exclaims hotly. This matter cannot wait. Any minute now, an assault unit will be dispatched to the lower decks on orders to crush the workers' strike by any means necessary. But I am convinced that this step is unwarranted, and that the crisis itself was provoked by the actions of one of the senior officers. Vent is almost trembling with tension as she delivers her speech, her face extremely pale. Abelard, in no hurry to intervene, lets out a skeptical huff. Lord Captain, I urge you to investigate the actions of Seneschal Wersurian, and to intervene in what's happening on the lower decks, because very soon we will have a mutiny or a massacre on our hands. Vent reels off the last words as though she knows them by heart. She has clearly been preparing to say them for some time. When she has finished, she casts an anxious glance at Abelard, then at you. So what you're telling me is that there's an insurrection in the making aboard my ship? And no one even thought to invite me? I would not deem it a problem worthy of the rogue trader's attention. The lower decks, as it so happens, are in revolt. 30-some years ago, we even had a revolutionary leader rise up who dared to establish workers' rules across the entire ship. It took a month to restore order, but even 8 years later, we were still battling rumors that the hero had survived his execution and was on the verge of gathering people to fight against tyranny once more. Abelard scoffs. Needless to say, the rumors were baseless. As for the current situation, we have sufficient guards to deal with it. But on this ship, the word of the Lord Captain carries more weight than a salvo from 100 bolters. I'm sure that if the rogue trader addresses the malcontents directly, he will quell the unrest. I dread to think what problem you will disturb the rogue trader with next. Perhaps you will ask the Lord Captain to break up brawls in the mess room? I've already given you the means to resolve this problem. You simply need to use them. If I may, your lordship, sending a hit squad to crush the rebellion is a means of ignoring the problem, not solving it. Enough. How did things get this far in the first place? The situation could boil over at any minute, so I'll give you the condensed version. It all began when the guards found a cultist amulet on the body of someone who'd been killed in a drunken brawl. We reported it up the chain immediately, arranged for a cleansing rite to be performed, and opened an investigation. No pirates have been found alive, but the search has brought tensions between guards and workers to a head. And where does Seneschal Bersurian come into all of this? I shall explain, Abelard intones grimly. I beg you to hurry. Time is running out. I will not hurry. Since my competence is under scrutiny, I shall speak for as long as I see fit. There is an established order to the way things are done on this ship, and one of the pillars of that system is that the rogue trader's attention is not to be distracted by trivial matters. It is the Seneschal's role to ensure that. I have always handled internal problems myself, so, of course, when I received information about pirates hiding on the lower decks, I took the matter in hand. So long as I live, not one of the vermin who murdered Theodora von Valancius will find refuge on her ship. You are far too heavy-handed, Seneschal Bersurian. Arrests, interrogations, mass punishments for entire sectors? It has driven people to the brink, Vent says bitterly. Now there is a strike on the lower decks, in Depot 4 to be precise. 3 worker clans are involved, but many more are passively supporting them. The situation could degenerate into an all-out insurrection. But when I reported my concerns, the only response I received was an order to dispatch an assault unit and crush the strike with maximum force. Abelard, what say you to this? I see no need to add anything. I acted within the remit of my authority, guided exclusively by the best interests of your trade empire and your personal safety. If you wish to confirm the rectitude of my actions for yourself, I have no objections. For my part, I urge the Lord Captain to go down to the lower decks, stop the assault unit, and speak directly to the people. You will see that they are not lying or harboring pirates. That way, you will stop the uprising before it begins. What exactly do we know about Depot 4? Depot 4 is one of the poorest sectors in the lower decks. It is home to clans of general laborers. They are not as valuable to the ship as the families who have served its specialized systems for generations. They are an easily replaceable resource, and one which is now more besides, giving succor to pirates and minions of the archenemy. Human resources. Depot 4 is poor and troubled, but at worst that means drunken fights and illegal rotgut brewing. We have handled the workers of Depot 4 in the past. We would have done so again if the crackdown on Depot 4 hadn't been so harsh. And another important point to bear in mind, the problem is not limited to this sector. It is located in one of the most populated lower decks, and everything that happens there has a knock-on effect on all the neighboring sectors. Very well, I believe I've heard enough. I will go down to the lower decks and deal with this problem personally. Praise the Emperor. Vent cannot contain her relief. Thank you, Lord Captain. Abelard grits his teeth slightly. An enterprise bordering on the sophomoric, but please yourself, Lord Captain. However, I categorically insist that I escort you. Okie dokie. Well, in that case, I guess Heinrichs is sitting this one out. Sorry, buddy. Okay, first things first. Let's make sure Abelard is prepped for field work. The fact they dropped us on a tactical map certainly does imply this might go south. Though, really, I'm not seeing a lot we need here. Another grenade, I suppose. And possibly some Grox bracers. Yeah, Grox bracers, defense over offense. And we're good. Hey, it's Wersurian! Take that, scum! I'm also saying a thing. Abelard reflexively wipes the sweat from his brow in a startlingly human gesture, and a telling one. A rare moment where he allows his age and weariness to show through his armor-like veneer of self-assurance. The lower decks are a source of endless problems. Sometimes I dearly regret that we cannot replace all the locals with servitors. Yeah, that's a crying shame. Did you hear? They were shouting your name. Of course they are. The organization of the daily routine life of the ship rests upon my shoulders. The mountain of challenges and problems from which I endeavor to insulate you, Lord Captain. The situation on the lower deck has been cause for concern, and I have intervened personally on more than one occasion. That must be why they remember me. They do not know your face. To them, you are akin to a creature of legend, one who has stood on the steps of the Golden Throne, no less. Whereas I am the man whose name is attached to every order docking rations, or lowering a bay's heating. I will say, Wersurian, I am somewhat shocked to see the crew of this ship treating a senior officer with such open disrespect. They would not have had a chance to express such disrespect if we were not here, and if the situation had been dealt with by the relevant officers. Abelard grimaces. It is a junior officer's worst failing to pass the problems up the chain of command. I have never been able to abide it. I shall say it again. It was a mistake to come here on Lieutenant Vent's whim, Lord Captain. I must admit that the lieutenant is by no means the worst material for an officer. By no means, Abelard adds peevishly. But in the name of Terra, the girl is the same age as my eldest great-granddaughter, and she has the gall to tell me how to manage the lower decks and hunt down pirates. It will be another 20 years at least before she can be trusted to act without oversight. Right, yes, well, be that as it may. We need to get to the bottom of this. Alright, let's have a look around. Something resembling a nest made out of thermal insulation material. This must be where the workers sleep between shifts. Yes, I believe that's called a bed.
None shall stand in my way.
We've also got a bunch of valves. I still do not see our purpose in coming here. Relax, old man. Going for a stroll on the lower decks every once in a while is good for you. Lets you see how the simple folk live. The sounds of a heated discussion reverberate through the ship's bays. Lieutenant Avrilla Vent of the ship's guard is barring the path of a heavily built assault unit officer, and judging by their expressions and tone, the standoff has dragged on for some time already, and has now reached a boiling point. I have my orders to put an end to the unrest and purge this sector. You can take your orders and shove them. This was my deck and my sector. There are only 3 people who can waltz in here without my express permission. The first officer, the rogue trader, and the Emperor himself. So, not all my lessons fall on deaf ears. Abelard mutters in crabby approval. He does not clarify whether he means Lieutenant Vent, the officer looming over her, or both. Your lordship. Noticing you, the 2 junior officers snap to attention and salute, their subordinates following suit a moment later. What seems to be the situation here? Your lordship, my people have locked down the bay where the strikers are, including their leaders. We have the situation under control as far as resources allow. Do you now? Well, then I must have simply imagined the ones who were hurling insults and objects when I first arrived. Vent pales slightly. The people are getting desperate, clearly. They saw the assault unit and they decided they had nothing left to lose. I mean, I apologize, Lord Captain. It is outrageous. I'm sure the people simply didn't recognize you. It wouldn't have occurred otherwise. We will deal with them once the current situation is resolved. Is that really all you have to say? Are you certain you're worthy of an officer's rank? Lieutenant Vent? Vent pales even more, but straightens up and clips out. Forgive me, Lord Captain. I will take steps to ensure such a thing does not happen again. See that you do. Now, where are these strikers? Abelard's mouth twists, but he restrains himself and says nothing. Right you are, Lord Captain. Allow me to wish you good luck. Hope gleams in Lieutenant Vent's eyes. Well, before we go over there, let's look over here. See if we can uncover any extra clues or context about what's going on.
New challenge for me? Something of interest.
Something of interest! A container can be seen beyond the massive bars. Perhaps examining the pipe will allow you to reach it. Huh. Nope, we can't use the valve. So what pipe? What pipe am I supposed to examine? More valves. Clearly those have something to do with something. Machine right set. Inside the box, a string of scratched letters runs along the edge. Different first names, but the same surname. It looks like this box has been passed down in the family from generation to generation. That is both touching and also kind of sad. These void ships are kind of a dystopian nightmare. But I guess that's really just the 40k universe in a nutshell, huh? Why can we reclose this door? That's weird. Maybe there's a point where we'll have to, like, seal ourselves in for some reason. Possibly if the talks go badly, I guess. Oh, hold on. Huge pipes, the arteries of the ship, run through many bays, delivering air, water, heat, and the propulsive force of steam. Oh, is that how we're supposed to get the container? Okay, so it's like a valve puzzle. Gotcha. A dozen pairs of eyes stare apprehensively at you. The people before you are typical inhabitants of the lower decks. You take in their simple clothing, crude weapons, and faces that display varying levels of mutation, from the barely discernible, to the strange, to the outright grotesque. For Depot 4! Our children are freezing! We've done nothing wrong and we're being punished! The guards have tormented us enough! A whisper passes through the crowd, and you detect a mixture of fear, astonishment, and joy in their reactions. Finally, 3 people break away from the crowd. An elderly woman and 2 men. These must be the leaders. They bow clumsily before you. "Lord Captain, you have come down to us." "Yes, 'tis I, RetconRaider. Tell me of your troubles. Why have you created this unseemly display?" "Unseemly? That's news to us, Your Grace," says a tall, thin man in worker's garb. "All we're doing is asking questions, saying what we think." "Shut up, beanpole," snaps the old woman, who turns her dark, hostile eyes on you. "Here's the deal, Your Grace. Your damn guards are all over us down here. They say they're looking for pirates. One wrong word and they're reaching for their batons. If they want to punish someone, they turn off the heating to the whole bay for a week at a time, so he gets sick and freeze. In my clan, 2 little ones died from inflammation in their lungs, all because of those guards." The old woman spits on the floor and rubs at the spittle with the toe of her worn-out shoe. "Yeah, I mean, that's not great." "It's all true. Vent is the only guard officer who stood up for us. It's clear as day who had a mother from the lower decks and who grew up amidships and has no fellow feelings towards us." The grim man with a scarred face throws up his arms. "Your Grace, we're no villains here. We're honest workers, your servants. We plotted no disorder. We went on strike openly, and now we've got guns pointed at us. All we're doing is asking to be allowed to work in peace, without being harassed." "And you say this all started unprovoked?" "Strange, I was told that cultist amulets were found on your dead, and that there were suspected pirates hiding among you." "Cultist amulets? What's that? The gewgaw they found on the dead drunkard? If it was something evil or forbidden, we sure didn't know. The guards just said they were looking for pirates among us, and anyone obstructing their investigation would be punished. But how could there be pirates here? We know our own people. There have been no new faces around." "Definitely not. And if there were, we'd be the first to report them." "And as for this amulet, or whatever it is, they took it off a dead body. There are no pirates still breathing in our sector, that's for sure. But when that fight broke out, some enterprising folks looted the bodies. The boots they came back with. Nobody's ever tread these decks in boots so fine. I can tell you that. Seems to me these pirates have better commanders than us." "Careful now." "Oh yeah, those boots were really fine. And there was no harm in taking them, right? As for the amulet, it must have been pocketed by someone who didn't know any better. We don't need any amulets around here. We all worship the Emperor, and when we're working, we bow down before the machine spirits of the large and small transformers and the servo motor. The same way my grandfather was taught 100 years ago by a tech priest who came calling. Believe us, Your Grace. We are people of faith."
I confirm the information regarding the proper tending of the machine spirits in this sector. Servitors indicate that these commoners are performing the sacraments. They are permitted to know.
"Well, Abelard, do you have anything to add?" "I authorize the use of all necessary measures to locate Chaos worshippers hiding in this sector. The specific steps taken by the officers were not reported to me." Abelard frowns, clearly disgruntled at having to explain himself in the workers' presence. "Nevertheless, I am certain that their actions were justified. Heretic pirates are no drunken stevedores. They are the enemy and a threat to the ship. Neutralizing them demands decisive actions. You know, some among you had the audacity to accost us on our approach. What say ye to that? Here's an explanation for you. The people have been pushed to their limit, and now they're lashing out. As if we don't know why these top-deck units are being sent down here. Like that one there that the lieutenant won't let pass. Our clans are all inside the bay that's been sealed off, but the lower decks are big. I'm sure there are some people who've just about had enough. We're getting it from all sides, Your Grace. The soldiers have encircled the ones who've risen up. A death squad just arrived. It's no wonder folks are lashing out. Their words seem sincere to you. Their body language and glances traded between them reveal that the news of the attack has shocked them. Very well, were I to negotiate, where would you have me start? Would you look at this? The exalted Lord Captain himself is asking us bilge rats what we want. Well, here's what. We want you to rein in your damn guards, to quit turning off the heat, and to stop battering everything that moves. No, that's not it. We want the guards gone from here, and we want to be armed. Give us arms and we'll govern ourselves. We'll defend ourselves if those pirates do show their faces. I've been leader of my clan for 20 years now. Getting rid of these club-wielding thugs can only improve things around here. You've gone too far, old man. They'll never let the maggots on the lower decks live without the guards breathing down their necks. They'd probably even insist on guards on the upper decks, too. As for weapons, what do we need them for? Before the first day's out, we'll have someone shooting their neighbor out of stupidity or drunkenness. We don't need that. If the guards stop hassling us, that'll be enough. In return, we'll find the scavengers who robbed the pirates' bodies, and we'll talk to them, one lower decker to another. If there are any more of those damned amulets about, we'll hand them over to the guards ourselves. You speak for yourself and your clan, and I'll speak for me and mine. I don't want empty gestures. I want real change. They'll promise us the world now, but as soon as the Anointed One turns his back, these brutes will be on us even harder than before. All because we dared to speak out. The tall worker's eyes dart between the two arguing leaders. Every few seconds he opens his mouth as if planning to agree, but each time he falls silent, simply making a few vague noises of approval. Abelard? Thoughts? The story about going scavenging for boots and accidentally picking up a heretical amulet doesn't convince me. These people were moments away from rebelling, and possibly becoming minions of the archenemy. We must not give them what they want. Even if they did acquire something innocently, purely out of their own stupidity, that does not mean that they are not tainted with corruption. What began as petty thievery can turn into a far graver problem. I have seen it before. Abelard's face darkens momentarily. In my second war, there was a sergeant in the Imperial Guard regiment that was stationed nearby. The sergeant took an ordinary pocket knife from the body of a heretic, and his whole unit lost their lives for it. When they finally managed to break into the barracks, they found not a single survivor, only the pocket knife, which had grown through all the rows of beds like a metal choking vine. So, when it comes to scavengers, malcontents, strikers, or whatever they'll turn into next, my verdict is simple. Give them no quarter. Well, that is quite a story. But I am yet unconvinced. So I think we'll just leave this to a coin toss. My friends, spreading anarchy on the ship is the first step towards embracing chaos. Putting weapons into untrained hands would be even worse. What's more, the guards are needed to maintain oversight and order. Withdraw those demands and we will consider the rest. The tall worker they call Beanpole shrugs and casts a sidelong look at the old woman. "Old man, listen, listen! The Lord Captain himself has come down to us and is offering concessions. And I don't know a single person in the whole of Depot 4 who's ever stood next to the rogue trader, let alone talked to them. Back down. Now's no time for you to be a stubborn old crone." Listen to us, old man. The three clans of Depot 4 ought to act as one. We've made our minds up. It's your turn to decide. Don't ask them to disband the guards or give us weapons. We don't need any of that. The old woman hisses in dissatisfaction. You two are ganging up on me, is that it? So brave you are against an old woman. But I'll shut up. I will indeed. I won't go against 2 clan leaders on my own. If you want to make peace with the guards, make your peace. That's great. Just fantastic. Lord Captain, we're all agreed. Then so be it. The persecution will stop, and I expect you to assist in locating any remaining amulets or weapons left by these pirates. Your Grace, your Lordship, thank you. You have not abandoned us lower deckers. You came yourself and settled everything. I'll tell my grandchildren about this. Of course, Your Grace. We'll root out any nasty business faster than the guards, and we'll leave no stone unturned. And look at that. All's well that ends well, at least for now. But let's finish looking around. Oh yeah, look at this. We've got a whole room back here. This page is where the start of each shift is marked. The last mark is missing. The workers went on strike. The heatsink warms the air around it to a scorching temperature. This is the warmest part of the bay. The workers have even dragged deck chairs here. Well, that's interesting, but it didn't really tell us much. What's that? Primitive tools. I was really expecting to find some sort of clue or twist or at least some way to interact with these steam pipes. Oh, here we go. Manometer. Manometer? The gauge shows that the steam pressure in this pipe is close to the maximum. However, it does not reach the bars at the other end. Now I'll bet we can interact with these valves. Some of them. Okay, so now the trick is finding which ones to turn or what order to turn them in. Very nice. Yes, okay, we have a good idea of what we're doing now.
Victory awaits.
Though I suppose the real question is whether this has anything to do with the strike, or if it's just like a random side puzzle for bonus loot. But hopefully we'll find out momentarily. That's 2. I'm not seeing any obvious hints about which ones would... Oh, shoot. Stopping unexpectedly, Abelard imperiously dismisses the unit to stand at a distance, and addresses your other companion, saying, I have an urgent matter to discuss with the Lord Captain. Please, give us a moment. Bye? Really hope we don't have any other skill checks down here. Abelard turns his gaze on you, and his last vestiges of restraint vanish. Well, are you pleased with your investigation, Lord Captain? You kowtowed to the disloyal rabble. You believed their lies and showed them leniency. Next time the ship is attacked by pirates, that rabble will welcome them in with open arms and allow them to wreak whatever havoc they like, because they see you as a weak leader. Is that how you see your future at the helm of the Von Valancius trade empire? Abelard, buddy, I know you're under a lot of pressure right now, but I will shoot you in the face. How dare you speak to your Lord Captain in that tone? I am obliged to speak thus. Who else can point out your errors and offer you counsel? Why are you so incensed? I solved the issue that you could not. But why did you have to be the one to do it? And did you consider what it might cost you? I would have handled the situation myself had you not decided to intervene, Abelard says irascibly. Remember Lord Captain Theodora? Do you think she ever set one slippered foot on the lower decks? No, she did not. Such matters were left to myself and the junior officers, while she dedicated herself to her grand designs for the trade empire, as any true strategist and rogue trader ought. Yes, well, mayhaps if my dear cousin had spent more time on trifling matters such as these, she wouldn't have ended up nearly as dead. There is a new Lord Captain aboard this ship now, Abelard. I will not be repeating her mistakes. Abelard looks at you, stunned, and exhales loudly. Then he nods curtly. I commend your decisiveness, but I am uncomfortable with introducing new protocols in the midst of a crisis. And Abelard stands straight at attention. I lost my temper, Lord Captain, and I believe I ought to explain myself. Abelard speaks slowly, the words not coming easily to him. The prosperity of the Von Valancius Empire is not just an empty phrase to me. I left the Imperial Navy for the chance to see it flourish. It was the most momentous decision of my life. I did it because I saw in Lord Captain Theodora's deeds the specter of true greatness. Rogue traders do not simply forge new routes and capture worlds. They create order out of anarchy. That creative impulse was entirely lacking during my time in the military. So I left behind everything I had known, everything my family had known. I came from a long line of officers, and I embarked upon this incredibly reckless venture. Lord Captain Theodora entrusted me with all the concerns she had no time for. She would go off on her flagship for long periods to distant frontiers, on scouting voyages, and the advancement of the entire trade empire rested on my shoulders. And then, suddenly, everything that had been built over years and years began to quake, rattling like a flimsy hangar in a seismically active world. One of the senior officers betrayed us all. The rogue trader was killed, and who knows what is happening on the planets. I tell you this honestly, without fear of appearing weak. All this has come as a grievous blow to me. I am not panicking or grieving because I cannot allow myself to panic or grieve. I am duty-bound to aid the new rogue trader, to aid you, to find your footing as quickly as possible. And to do that, I must insulate you from problems that in the past have been dealt with by tried and tested procedures, set out in the ship's regulations. Procedures that were established long ago and have functioned smoothly for decades cannot suddenly be deemed excess to requirements. Oh man, we've got a whole bunch of fairly nuanced responses here. Abelard, I understand, but you need to learn how to respect me as your Lord Captain and Rogue Trader. Accept it and start living in the new world. A world where Theodora is gone, and where you and I have new decisions to make. Abelard solemnly inclines his head. Yes, Lord Captain. After a moment's silence, he adds, looking at you with interest. Your resolve is admirable, and demonstrates strong leadership. I shall remember this moment, should my old habits ever begin to creep back in. And now, please, let us leave the lower decks. If the rogue trader desires to stretch his legs, there are far more suitable places. That's my Abelard. Roll credits.
I won't tolerate weakness.
Well, that was fascinating. You know, Abelard's not necessarily my favorite character on the crew, but I like him. He's He's very much an old guard, struggling to adapt to a new world, much in the way I just told him that. You know, he dedicated his entire life to my predecessor, a woman that we barely know anything about, only to now find himself thrust into a position where he's serving us instead. And of course, we're a complete wild card. Our rogue trader could go in any direction. Though I do feel, given what we've heard about our predecessor, that my criminally inclined rogue trader is not too far off from what she was like. He just had more open respect for her for whatever reason. I'll refrain from speculating on exactly why, but I do have suspicions. That said, we're at time. I don't know how long it's going to take me to find the right combination of valves to turn, so I feel like this is a good breaking point. We'll hit the pause button for now. I'll figure this out off screen, and then we will pick up here next time as we see what comes down the pipeline, and then delve ever deeper into the infinite cosmos. Adventure awaits. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Dragon Matrix 7, Mathew Smith, Revenant, Alois, Drakiith, Theory V23, EgonAlter, Emile, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Kazorm, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.